Have a little Shinifka. There you go. I'd like to call to order December 6, 2016 meeting of the Sayreville Board of Education. Everybody please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Madam Board Secretary, has this meeting been advertised in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act?
Yes, it has.
You do the roll call, please.
Mr. Balco?
Here.
Mrs. Batco?
Here.
Mr. Bashada?
Here.
Mrs. Bloom?
Here.
Mr. Sayak?
Here.
Mrs. DePinto?
Here.
Mr. Esposito?
Here.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. McAgnone?
I am present. I need a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
Need a second?
Second. Beat you.
If you could please read the resolution.
Whereas Section 8 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975, permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas this public body is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Education of the Borough of Sayreville, County of Middlesex, State of New Jersey, as follows. The public shall be excluded from discussion of and action upon the hereinafter specified subject matters. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. Personnel, including but not limited to agenda items, negotiations for the Sayreville Education Association, and the superintendent's merit goals. It is anticipated at this time that the above stated subject matter shall be made public at such time as the need for non-disclosure no longer exists. This resolution shall take effect immediately.
Vote. Roll call, please.
Okay. Mr. Balca?
Yes.
Mrs. Batco?
Yes.
Mr. Bashada?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Sayak?
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes.
Mr. McAgnone?
Yes. The board will go into executive session, reconvene in public at 7:30. I'd like to call to order the September 6, 2016 meeting of the Sayreville Board of Education. Everybody please stand and join me in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you please remain standing for a moment of silence for 1 minute. We had about a few weeks ago a former member of the Sayreville Board of Education pass away, Dr. Edward Jazanowski, Dr. Jazz. He served on the Sayreville Board of Ed for only about a year and a half, but during that time he was instrumental in actually changing board direction and garnering community support for the Emma L. Arlett School Addition, which gave those children a gymnasium, gave those children a library, and helped solve our overcrowding problem for a while in this district. So I'd like to have a moment of silence in memory of Dr. Jazanowski and his service to the children of Sayreville. Thank you.
Madam Board Secretary, has this meeting been advertised in accordance with the Open Public Meeting Act?
Yes, it has.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Balco?
Here.
Mrs. Batco? Here. Mr. Bashada?
Here.
Mrs. Bloom?
Here.
Mr. Sayak?
Here.
Mrs. DePinto?
Here.
Mr. Esposito?
Here.
Mr. Walsh?
Here.
Mr. McAgnone?
I am present. Can you please synopsize for the public our executive session minute, resolution, please?
Yes. Personnel items, including but not limited to agenda items, negotiations regarding the Sayreville Education Association, superintendent's merit goals.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Labby, would you please like to introduce some of your administrators that are here today?
Yes, thank you, Mr. McAgnone. Traditionally here, for the first Board of Education meeting of the school year, and technically this is the first Board of Education meeting when our students have returned, we take the opportunity to introduce the fine and outstanding leaders that we have in this district. And because we have so many that are new to the district, I'd like to introduce them individually so that our Board of Education members have the opportunity to put the name and face together. So why don't we begin with the high school, a team that you already know quite well, Mr. Brown. If you don't mind standing, Mr. Brown. Thank you. Next to him is Mr. Rubino, Mrs. Romero, and Mr. Glahusky. They make up our high school administrative team. Our middle school team, I believe, is here as well. Mrs. Jakubik, how are you? Mr. Jagu, Dr. Rollins couldn't make it today?
I forgot to tell her about it.
Okay, and of course, Dr. Rollins, our new assistant principal at the middle school as well, is a part of our team. And our team at the Samsel Upper Elementary School, Miss Marr and Mr. Nurnberger. Okay. Our principal at the Arleth Elementary School, Mr. Robert Preston. The principal at the Eisenhower School, Dr. Edward Agalis. Is Mr. Byrne here? Not yet. Mr. Byrne is our principal at the Truman Elementary School. He is not here. And Mrs. Davis is the principal at the Wilson Elementary School. She is not here also. We have our Project Before supervisor, Mrs. Audrey Burns, here today. She is. Also, our supervisor in special education in grades 6 through 12, Mr. David Nasser is here. Moving along to our supervisory team, beginning with our Director of Athletics and Supervisor of Physical Education, Mrs. Jennifer Badami. Of course, the star of Sayreville University, our Supervisor of Professional Development, Mrs. Shannon Johnson. The Supervisor of our Guidance Department, who will be doing a wonderful presentation for you later, Mrs. Segola. Our elementary supervisor, Amy Stuber. This is Amy Stuber. Our STEM supervisor, that is our science supervisor, and our mathematics supervisor, and anything else we tag on there, Dr. Trevisano. Is Mr. Gentile here today? Mr. Gentile is not here today, but Mr. Gentile is our related arts supervisor and our supervisor for social studies. And of course, our English language arts supervisor, K through 12, Mrs. Kimberly Grossman, is here with us today. And we have our Director of Facilities and Operations here, who's been working tirelessly around the clock, Mr. James Colmsberger. She did a great job for our pre-meeting meal, Mrs. Michelle Jenkins, Director of our Food Services. She did a great job. It was wonderful, as always. And is Mrs. Vestano here? The Supervisor of our Transportation Department is Mrs. Vestano, and apparently she is not here either. Okay. Did I miss anybody? Oh, I did good. All right. There you go, sir.
Well, thank you for all coming. Appreciate it.
Yes, thank you guys very, very much.
Dr. Aglis, did you say something? Okay. All right. Without further ado, Dr. Labby, our presentation.
Several board meetings ago, Mr. Sayak came up with a great idea of developing Vision 2030 goals. Part of that plan was the development of these committees designed to focus on these particular goals. And one of the goals, I believe it's goal number 4, focuses on student outcomes. So at that point, Mr. Esposito reached out to Dr. Shediak and Mrs. Secola and asked them if they could do a presentation this evening on all the student outcomes that our seniors go ahead and participate in once they leave the Sayreville Public Schools. I've had a chance to read over the presentation. There are copies out there. Do our Board of Education members have those copies? You're going to find the information quite fascinating. So without further delay, Mrs. Secola. You can use that one too.
Oh, okay. I'd rather. Hello? Is it not on?
Yeah, it's on.
Hello?
Yep.
Okay, we're good. Good evening, everybody. Hello. I'm Donna Secola, as Dr. Labby said, Supervisor of Guidance, and I prepared a presentation for you this evening with the big question, where are Sayreville's top 10 students going after high school? And so what I've done is I've taken the data from the classes of 2011 through the class, the class that just graduated this June, the class of 2016. And I'm going to share with you the information as to where they are and went where they're headed after high school. So if we take a look, I started with the 2011, the older class first on the left, and 2012 on the right. And we start with the valedictorian down to student number 10. So each of these slides will show you that, the top 10 students and the schools where they went. I found the class of 2012 particularly interesting that 8 out of the top 10 went to Rutgers. It's just out of all these 6, it's the only class that had that many, but 8 out of 10. I found that very interesting. And I calculated that 42% of our top 10 seniors in those classes 11 to 16 did in fact attend Rutgers. Very interesting. Here you have the classes of 13 and 14. As you can see, even from the prior slide, there are many New Jersey schools listed. Sayreville students apply and attend many of the schools in New Jersey. And I calculated it out that in the years 2011 to 16, 60% of them did in fact attend New Jersey schools. And these are our most recent, most current classes, 15 and 16. I looked up the rankings in U.S. News and World Report of the schools for these 6 years, and I found that they were in categories, 2 different categories, nationally ranked and regionally ranked. And so of all of these schools for the 6 years, I found that the students ranged in nationally ranked category from number 15 Cornell to 161, which is the University of Rhode Island. And they attended regionally ranked schools. Number 1 was Villanova, and down to 75, University of Delaware. So very highly ranked schools. Today, a question came up about the rankings. We were looking at Rutgers to see because to us, Rutgers is a regional school, but we could not find, we found in U.S. News and World Report that it was one or the other. If you were ranked in the national ranking category, you were not in a regional ranking. So Rutgers only comes up in national, yet Villanova was a regional. I found that interesting today. You know, I'm projecting questions that people may ask, and that was just something that came up. By the way, if any of the board members, if you have any questions, feel free. You can just raise your hand and stop me at any time rather than going back a slide. I have no problem with that. Or the public, I'm good with that.
Just not the administrators. They're not allowed to ask you
All
questions.
right. Well, that doesn't leave many other people. All right. So for the class of 2016, we had 408 students, and these are the schools where the majority of them applied. I stopped at 14. I didn't want the slide to go on for days because we do have significant numbers below that, but they are 13 or less. I don't even think there's a 13. I think it's much further down the list than that. Consistently, Middlesex comes up as number 1. We had 158, Rutgers right behind with the 115. 84% of the student applications are made to New Jersey schools. Middlesex County and Rutgers are consistently our top 2 schools that our students apply to.
Mrs. Call, the 158 to Middlesex, would you know if that was an economic issue or an academic issue?
I would say that a good majority, a lot of Middlesex applicants are later in the year, later in the spring. And so I think what happens is students don't get the financial award to the 4-year schools they're applying to, and that drives up the applicants to Middlesex County College.
Okay, thank you.
And this is the slide where the majority of them were accepted. So, you know, Middlesex having been the highest one for applicants, it is also, you know, if you apply to Middlesex, you get in, so it is the 158. And then Rutgers is right behind with the 68. I stopped at 6. We do go below 6, you know, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But again, the slide would have been just too great to put on the screen. And I do have plenty of copies over there for anyone who didn't get a copy. Not the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, but what's on the screen. where did the majority of our students attend? So we had where did they apply, we had where were they accepted, and of course what follows is where did they actually go. So we had 114 of them attend Middlesex County College, 45 Rutgers, and down from there you can see, and again, 95% attend schools in New Jersey. It's as high as 95% of our 2016 students attended schools in New Jersey. Very interesting.
So, Mrs. Sokola, as we're looking at planning and making decisions, I mean, we've got a cohort of students that really want to stay local.
Correct.
I mean, we really need to look at what colleges from New Jersey are expecting from our graduates, and are we adequately preparing them, because that's where the bulk are
That's
going.
correct.
And applying.
Right.
Okay.
I did a side-by-side comparison from 2015 to 16. I debated doing all of those slides for 2015 and matching them with 2016. I could provide that data if anyone wants it. I didn't want 10,000 slides, and I was told I only have a certain time period. I want to stay within that time. But this is a comparison. I think it's a little hard to read the top line from over there, but it's 2015 on the left and 2016 on the right. You will notice that Middlesex County College dropped from 158 to 114 this past year. And you will see in the next slide that we had a significant decrease in the number of students attending a two-year school. And we had a significant increase in students attending a four-year school. I am very happy to say that we have 49% of our 2016 graduates going to a four-year school. It has not been that high. I went back to 2011 was 48%. So, and last year you can see was 43. That I was very, very happy with that
Ms. Sokola,
increase.
is there a way for us to track how many graduate from the four-year school?
Unfortunately, there is not. They came up with the 10-digit state ID a few years ago. We were told that down the road we would be able to track our students once they left here, and it just hasn't happened yet. I'm hoping that we do see that. Because, in fact, I have a slide on the majors, the students' majors. We know that students on average change majors 3 times in their time at college. So it would be really nice to be able to see what, in fact, they do go to school for, where they graduate from. And all of our Middlesex students, where do they go from Middlesex? That would be awesome. It's unfortunate. And we tried a few years ago, Dr. Alfano had me do surveys with the graduates. We did a 6-month survey through Naviance, and we did not get a very good response by the students, so we followed it up with a mailing. I don't think we had 1/3 of the students reply. We did get one hate letter, but other than that, it was about 1/3 gave us a response. And so, my data on the bottom states that we increased by 6% the number of students attending a four-year school in 2016, and a decrease of 1%, which I'm not sad about, because I'll take the 6% increase in four-year schools any day of the week. I do want you to take a look at the other areas of where our students are going. Some do attend business and technical schools. This past year in 2016, we had 2 students go into apprenticeship programs. We've had a very low number of apprenticeship, or 0, over the last 3 or 4 years, so that was nice to see back again. And consistent, the unemployed, employment, seeking employment or unknown, 13 to 14% in the same neighborhood. These are the majors. Now, understand that this is all self-reported. In June of every year, we do a senior survey. We do it through Naviance. We get every single student to complete the survey. Those that do not, we call them down, and we have the Chromebooks sitting there, and we say, sit down, we need you to do this. And we make every single student fill out a student survey. But it is their self-reporting. So these are the majors that they tell us that they are going into. I stopped at 2. We still have a bunch more 2s and a whole lot of 1s. Interesting to note that we have 21 biology, 21 undecided. Those are our top 2 majors. But I took a look at, if you take a look at both columns, you see an awful lot of engineering, computer engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, it goes on and on. So I tallied up all of the engineering categories, and that actually becomes our number one major, 24 students entering a field of engineering, which supports our STEM program and the Dr. Trevisono's departments. He doesn't want me to drag him into this, so I'll keep moving on. Always a big question, are our students going to Ivy League schools? Are they applying to Ivy League schools, and are they getting into Ivy League schools? I think it's important, there's a lot of information on this slide. I think it's very important to take a look at Ivy League tuition. That is a big deterrent. That's an annual tuition for our students. But what I did here was I listed the Ivies by national rank, starting with 1 to 8. The next column, you have our Sayreville students and how many applied to each of those schools. So we did have 54 students in 2016 apply to the Ivy League schools. The number of our students that were accepted is 3. 1 is attending. I actually researched to make sure that they were not the same 3 students, and they are not. They're different students. So we had 1 out of 3 attending the Ivy they were accepted to. And then if you go over to the right, I want you to see the number of applications the number of applicants to each of those Ivy League schools. Those are significant numbers. And I think we should look at Princeton, which, you know, we've established our students like to stay in state. It's not far from here. Princeton received 26,664 applications and only accept 2,095. That's an 8% acceptance rate. So what I did here was I took all of the acceptance rates, the average acceptance rates to the Ivies, and if you average them out, it's 8.94% are accepted to an Ivy League school. So you should find this very interesting that if you take a look at that, I rounded it to 9% on the bottom, but if you take our 3 students out of 54 that applied, that puts us at a 5% Ivy League acceptance rate. That's not bad. And then, if you have 2 more students accepted, we reach the 9, which is the national average. So, our kids are getting in to the Ivies almost at the percentage as the rest of the students who are applying to the Ivies. Before I switch, I know there's a lot of information on this slide. Does anybody have any questions? Okay. Other categories, military, technical, these are just by number for our class of 2016. On average, the future plans for 16 to 17% of our graduates include the military, technical schools, and seeking employment or being unemployed, seeking employment. We do have those are the actual military number students that went into the military for 2016. We haven't had an academy application in many years, but I do know 1 student already for the class of 2017 is applying to one of the academies. I heard that down the hall. Scholarship information is a difficult category to really get a good gauge, an accurate gauge of money. And the reason is it's self-reported by the student. So we beg them, please bring us your letters, please bring us your information, and we don't get an awful lot of that. We do ask in the senior survey for they do list their scholarships. One thing I did learn from creating this presentation is we need to break up where they report their scholarship information. We need 2 categories, or we need to be specific that it's a yearly award versus a 4-year award, because the student who got the Saybird Award listed it as a $5,000 scholarship, but in fact that's a 4-year scholarship. So that's a $20,000 scholarship. So through Naviance, through the senior survey, it was reported that our students received $1,020,213. I did tally the Sayreville local scholarships. And believe it or not, our students received $61,755 from Sayreville organizations, people, and companies right in our own town. Significant number of money. I did not go below 20,000 to produce this slide. So there were more awards. It is in the 1 million, but it's just not listed on the slide below 20,000. And lastly, some essential questions for the committee. Do we have appropriate, adequate course offerings to support our students' future academic pursuits? If we do not, how do we enhance or expand our course offerings within budget and contractual restraints? And lastly, how do we support our students who do not have plans to attend 2- and 4-year schools? Anybody have any questions?
Yes, I have one, please. One of the issues when I was on the board years ago, I always brought up the fact about some of our students go to a 2- or 4-year school and they have to take remedial courses because they don't qualify. Could you find out somewhere down the road of the students that are attending a 4-year, 2-year, or even any school, if they do take remedial courses? Because what that shows then that the students that are graduating aren't really prepared to go to college.
From what I'm hearing you saying, you're asking me to, I would have to ask the students.
Is there any way of contacting the university,
They
or
will
is that
not-
an invasion of
They
privacy?
will not give us that data. I've asked.
Maybe it's a possibility if we can give them a questionnaire, just to follow up after their first semester or their midterm, or even if they complete their first year, if they took any remedial courses, because that'll give us an indication of where we have to improve, so to speak, to get them that they don't have to spend 5 years instead of 4 years in a college.
One thing that I think we could immediately do is a lot of students know by June whether or not they've taken the AccuPlacer at the colleges they're going to. So we can actually add that to the senior survey and see if they know before June how many already know that they need to take.
That would be from the pre-testing that they take when they go to apply to, or they're accepted. Most students, what they do is they apply, they're accepted, then the university or college asks them to take a pre-testing.
Correct. That's usually the
Curriculum.
AccuPlacer. It's the AccuPlacer exam put out by College Board. A lot of them take it before they even graduate from here in June.
Okay. The other question I have is that, I brought this up several times also about careers. Not everyone's made to go to college, and I see that we have 14% in the class of 2016 that are seeking employment or other sources of whatever. One of the issues that I've always had, that, Sayreville has always been considered a blue-collar town, all right? And over the years, it's went to a bedroom community where everybody gets on a bus or train and goes somewhere else to work. But one of the issues that we need to address is that, again, not everyone's ready for college. Can we implement, and I mentioned this to Dr. Labby about having some of our, maybe a little bit of vocational training here at the Sayreville high school, such as maybe an extended wood course, maybe drafting that we had here, which is gone, the auto shop, making the students compelled to do the work in the classroom and learn, so that they do have something that when they do graduate, if they don't want to go to, and we'll say something like Lincoln Tech or one of the other trade schools, that they have something that they can go into the workforce and be prepared, or even plumbing, electrical, something like that.
I agree with you 100%, and that number of 13 and 14% is up. It was just 5 years ago at 8% holding steady. So we are seeing an increase. That's why I added that last question, because that is one of my concerns as well. So again, we unfortunately have to go back to budget and contractual restraints. That's the right word. But we do need to look curriculum-wise and course offering-wise to see if we would be able to do something like that.
Thank you.
Mr. Kohler, I mentioned at the meeting that we had that myself and a couple other board members went to a STEM workshop in July, hosted by the Army, attended by board members, educators, to expose us to the technologies that currently the military uses and the problem they're having of recruits coming in and be able to utilize that technology. Have we, since you've been here as a supervisor of guidance, had a military career day? where militaries come in and talked about the opportunities that are out there for education, exposure to technology, and that type of thing.
A few years back, we used to have a college fair, and the military was present. All of the branches were there. But just recently, in June, we had a military, we had representatives from all branches of the military in the library here at the high school, and juniors and seniors were able to sign up through Naviance. We had a packed library of students. It was extremely informative, and Mrs. Cack, one of my counselors, her husband's in the Air Force, and she felt that, feels very strongly about that. She works closely with our military reps that come in, and she set it all up, that all of the different branches were there, and the students were able to listen to and hear what each offer.
Do we have one planned for this year?
Not yet, not
Is
yet.
that something that?
Oh, we're certainly going to do it again, for sure. And we have the AccuPlacer planned again for September 20th here at the high school. Last year, we did not open, the AccuPlacer is the entrance exam for the military. We did not open that.
You talk about the ASVAB.
I'm sorry, yes, the ASVAB,
Right.
I apologize.
Understood.
Yes, we had that in June. We didn't open it up to the student body. This year, we gave that test as an alternate to, as another way for students to achieve their testing requirement, graduation testing requirement. We have them coming in on September 20th. I asked them to prepare for 150 students, and we are opening that up to the juniors and seniors for anyone who cares to, wishes to sign up and take the test that day.
Okay. And you had mentioned that it's been a while since we've had a military academy, a student selected to go to military academy. It's been my experience that the lack of applicants is because of lack of knowledge. Is there any literature that we have in the school or in your office about the military academies that you can get from the admissions officers?
We have an entire section of the, in the guidance office.
Right, I saw that. That's all the recruitment.
Yeah, that's all we have,
I'll talk about
yeah.
from the military academies themselves.
I don't believe so.
Okay. That might be worthy to get it from the admissions office. I know they'll send it to you freely. It's quite interesting to look at that, and they'll usually give you a demographic sheet of the class of the year before that went in nationwide and what their scores were, their SATs, and I would argue with anybody here in this room that getting into those military academies is just as hard or harder than getting into Ivy League schools. You look at percentages.
It is. It's
So
very
I
difficult.
would like to be able to educate them, at least let them know that's an opportunity there. And I think in this town, in Sayreville War Memorial High School, that would be something that would be available to our students. And I believe it is with Mr. Brown, and I know that they're. Yes.
Our kids are choosing the ROTC route, college
Right.
and the ROTC route. We've had a couple of kids last year's class, and for example, one young man who's going to go military academy
Okay.
this year and chose the ROTC route again. He had asked me to go back.
Yeah, it happens a lot. The kids get accepted to
I
both.
just think they
If-
want to
right.
make that military commitment.
Yeah, and you want a normal college life, you go to ROTC.
They want to take it in too, so to speak.
Right. So I noticed in one of your slides, one of the classes you had, one of the top 10 students, it said Navy. And I'm wondering if that's Annapolis or if that is a Navy ROTC scholarship versus just enlisting as one of the top 10 students that, it's kind of curious.
It was a student who joined the Navy.
It joined the Navy, okay,
Yes.
enlisted in the Navy, okay. Nothing wrong with that, okay, thank you.
Mrs. Sokola, on your first essential question, that question as it's written is basically the focus of the Vision 2030 Goal 4 committee. From your perspective, I mean, you deal very closely with our students, you also deal very closely with admissions officers. What are you hearing in terms of feedback on our course offerings and or our graduation requirements in terms of what students are either looking for in courses or colleges are looking for and perceiving Sayreville based upon what they see our students graduating with?
Last year, I was asked to ask the admissions reps that. In another week, we will have an admission rep here almost every day through December that the students can come in and sign up for. But it wasn't in the fall. In the spring, I was asked to ask some questions of our admissions reps. And I said, what are you looking for and what do you see on our, tell me about, from your perspective, what do you think about Sayreville? I unfortunately didn't bring, that was last year, I didn't bring that data with me. I could have, which schools I called at this point, I don't remember.
Yeah, high level's fine.
But what they said to me was this: your students, the rigor is there, the AP courses are there. Unfortunately, when it comes to senior year, your students have, and this was their word, not mine, fluff on their schedule. and I can't say that I disagree. We have a 3-year requirement for for science, math, history. We have a 1-year foreign language. Our students tend to drop it off after that. 4-year colleges are looking for 2 years of a foreign language or more. In doing junior scheduling conflicts this summer, I was the one counselor that's out on maternity. I was going through her conflicts, and I kept saying, you know, in my head, I'm looking for the science, the math, the history. Where's the foreign language? Where's the foreign language? And I just kept saying to myself, where's the foreign language? The students weren't taking the foreign language. I was, you know, one after another after another. So we don't require them to move on to take more than 3 math, more than 3 science, or more than 3 history. Your top kids are taking them. They're doubling up in science. They're doubling up in math. They're taking the AP courses. But your middle-of-the-road kids, I'm done. And they do not want to pursue.
Can I ask a question, Ms. Scull? So when those, let's say, middle-of-the-road students meet with their guidance counselors, are the guidance counselors recommending to them?
So much so that sometimes parents will complain to me. Yes. Because we know what the colleges are looking for. And they want them to have those core classes.
Because I'm just wondering if maybe our guidance counselors also maybe need, like, more training in what is being looked for.
They know what the colleges are looking for. It's very difficult sometimes. And then on top of it, our students, some of them start out freshman year taking a second math and a reading with their English because they need the remedial skills. So after 2 years of that, they need to fill in and take their graduation requirements, the economics, the practical, the performing arts. So they need to get those courses in as well, which are art electives, you know, are computer electives. They are these other electives. But at that point, you know, we do have a significant number of seniors that are taking a whole lot of electives in senior year.
Well, you know, we recognized this years ago, I think, when we did away with the early release, and we added electives that were viable electives. I think we came up with a whole new course of electives like the robotics and those types of things. But, you know, the state needs to help us, and that's the problem. The state keeps forcing STEM, talking STEM, but 3 years of math, 4 years of PE. So I don't get it. So I think that's part of the problem. But I'm an advocate of aggressive counseling. We get those kids and say, no, this is what you need to take, and then if mom wants to call and complain, you know, have them send us an email.
But to your point, I mean, we can also, as a board, I mean, those are the minimum requirements. We could, as a board, certainly start enhancing the requirements for graduation from a content perspective. But now, if we do that, now, I mean, it's not going to have any impact on the upper kids because they're already taking the courses. It'll probably have a positive impact on the middle-of-the-road students, but then your at-risk children, that's where it's going to have a challenge. So that's, I guess, where your next question comes in, is how do we deal with that to provide them additional opportunity, whether that be a 0th period, or I know we mentioned as a goal block scheduling. I mean, is that kind of where your head is with this?
Yes, because we raised the credit requirement from 120 to 130, but we didn't raise the number of credits a student can take in their 4 years. So we're still at 140. So while it was great to raise that requirement, we didn't raise any other requirement to go along with it. So I think I talk all the time about a 0 period, that block scheduling that Mr. Glahaski worked on. Allowed for a 9th period. That gives students more credits in their 4 years and more periods to be able to take better, you know, a fourth math, a 4th science, and not because they have to get their graduation requirements, but to take them, you know, for the rigor and to better prepare themselves. And we did. Somebody mentioned that we added some good content electives. We did. We really did.
So it sounds like our opportunity is in raising the requirements and then also looking at the schedule to provide more opportunity both to take those additional
Right.
courses for the advanced students and also to fall back on in the event a student needs an extra period for remediation.
Correct.
That's a thing on the block schedule.
And that's either block schedule or we can look at other options if we can't financially make that work.
Mr. Sack, you as chair, I would recommend that we have somewhere to start right now, but I think what we should do is look at a comparison such as a district as North Brunswick compared to Sayreville or South Brunswick or our neighbor Old Bridge to get an idea where we stand with other school districts as far as our students that are advancing their education after high school. I think that would help us to know if we're above, in the middle, comparison-wise. I think we should, you know, look into that.
I agree with you, and that's one of the things our committee has been talking about. We're trying to find the right peer cohort, because North Brunswick seems to be in our peer group, but they're not in our district factor group. So it's a matter of finding the right collection of schools to compare ourselves to, but I'm with you on that.
Yeah. I remember when we changed the credits to 140, there also was a chart where students had to take certain classes from certain groups. And if I remember correctly, that was started that way as a way to ease into the 140. Has anything been analyzed on how effective that was, and I thought the goal was to increase the rigor in time after that was analyzed from the beginning, because we started with the 140 and we started with different categories. And there was supposed to be, we never got any data back on how that was working.
It's 130, we only increased to 130. They take 140 in 4 years, but they're only required to pass 130. We did add electives that were career and college ready. We did do that. We never made it a requirement that they had to pick from certain categories. But our students are taking some of these good core content. We have great science electives and language arts electives. They are taking these, but when you have to only take phys ed and English as a senior, and then you can see that they're electives.
Well, do you find that the neighboring towns are requiring 4 years of math and science and we're not?
Some of them are.
Could you just give me examples of do you know which schools are around here?
No, I don't.
No.
Maryland, do
You know, the trick is,
No.
the funny thing is, we're talking about two different things here. We want to have high rigor, but we also want to have freedom for the students who, like Tom mentioned before, who maybe are not college bound. They need to be educated in a technical class or something. We don't want to, take away that freedom while, making the rigor higher. Of course, we want a kid who decides he's college bound to have the ability, and I think he does now, to take 4 years of math, but we don't want to also take away that freedom from a kid who's like, I want to do something with my hands. What's my education? Where does my route take me that way? So it's kind of a bind,
It's a catch-22, and as much, as it comes out of one side of my mouth that I'd love to see you raise, I think maybe a start would be foreign language for 2 years, but as it comes out of my mouth to say we should raise 3 years of science to 4, 3 years of math to 4, I also see the other side of it, and I see the students every day. Today I had to fill out a form for the state, how many students took credit recovery classes in the year 2014-15. We had 83 students, and that wasn't 83 classes. We had 83 students take one or more EduSeer classes for credit recovery. To me, that's a direct result of raising the credit requirement to 130 without raising the credit availability to our students. So yes, I agree, raise the rigor. Again, I say to you, your top students have the rigor. They want it, they beg for it, they're using it. But we really need to take a look. 14% is breaking my heart. 14% of our kids not going on anywhere from here, that they can look at us and say, I don't know what I'm doing next year. And as the supervisor of guidance, I don't want to hear those words. I don't. I think we need to do a better job there.
And Mr. Walsh, I think you've adequately framed the problem too, because
For sure.
what you said was that from a college perspective, these kids need these courses. But I think what I'm hearing is we've got a large group that are going on to colleges that are just slacking off. And they're in their senior year. They're taking more of those fluff courses.
Well,
And that's what's creating the challenge.
Also remember, the student transcript goes out now. Our senior transcript goes out now. So the GPA is what they finished junior year with. Their courses that go on that transcript to college, yes, we show what they're enrolled in, but they're being judged on 3 years of school.
Well,
So,
I think the group we have to look at is that 14% that she's talking about, and also that 41% that's going to two-year schools. How many of them can we make 4-year, and how many of them want to go? Maybe that's not the path. They're just doing it because it's kind of, hey, it's been kind of banged in my head that I want to go on, but maybe it's a technical, or push it further and go the other way. But it's kind of breaking 20 each way maybe, I don't, out of that 41%.
Many of our students going to the Middlesex schools are being accepted to four-year schools and financially can't go to them.
Understood, and I know,
So-
and I want to make that too, I understand now I know Rutgers has a partnership with them, they take all those credits, so that's it's a smart move to go there.
A lot of them, there is a track right at Middlesex that you can go right from there. And that's why I'm hoping this state ID, we are able
Right, see
down the
where
road. I'd love to see where our kids go from
Yeah.
Middlesex. But something I didn't include in the slide, many of our students, their deciding factor, the four-year going to Rutgers, a lot of them are getting full rides to Rutgers. They are. So, when they're deciding Cornell or Rutgers, because one of the Cornell acceptance went to Rutgers, it was a full ride. So $70,000 a year, full ride.
Yeah, no brainer.
Hey, my kid's going to Rutgers.
Mrs. Skull, I know you're understaffed, but my question, I guess, would be start with this. Do you meet with every single student at least once in their 4 years?
Me personally?
No, your staff.
Oh, at least once a year.
So this could also be individualized. If a student, says to you, I want to go to a four-year college, you could be, individualizing there, saying, look, you have to take 4 years of math, 4 years of X, 4 years of, what I mean? Shouldn't you be telling each student individually, if you're not going to college, you could take that fluff schedule senior year, but if you plan on going to college, take my word for it, take these courses. I mean, are we doing that?
We do.
You do?
We do that.
Is it getting across to them? I forced my daughter to do it this year. However, her friends, she didn't want to do it. But she had no choice. But I'm not quite sure where it came from. If it came from me only, or if it came from the guidance also. I never asked her.
Oh, it's definitely my school counselor.
It was you, huh? Good job.
But I think I think you hit it, though. The success comes in that team. You've got the school counselor pushing it, and you've got the parent behind saying, yeah, you've got to do this.
Well, no kidding.
Oh, sure.
The problem is that doesn't exist in
Every home.
all of our students.
Correct.
Okay.
Can I ask one question, please? Donna, when we say remedial courses, on the average, how many remedial courses does a student have to take? Would it be like maybe an English class or a math class or English and math?
We do have students taking both.
Okay.
We do have them taking both. We hope that in freshman and sophomore year, if they're taking the reading with the English and the support math with Algebra 1 or geometry, that by junior year, we're able to get them up a level to not have that second class.
Okay, but when the colleges say that they need a remedial coming in, like you need
Oh, once they leave here?
once they leave here, when the colleges are saying you need to take a remedial English because what you have isn't.
See, we don't know, we don't have that information.
Okay.
That's
So
all
you
on,
wouldn't know if
yeah.
it was one course or two.
It's
That
based on
happens-
SAT scores, anyway.
And just if I can jump in real fast, the only information that we ever get is from the actual colleges for percentage of kids in the state. And right now, the percentage of kids in the state is pretty consistent with the kids nationally, and it's about 40%. Only about 40% of our students in the state have to take a remedial course in either language arts or mathematics.
Any other questions for the board? I'd like to just any.
I have one question.
Okay.
Ms. Sokola, do you know, could you prepare a statistic? Because I know personally there are students who have, high academic achievement and end up in Middlesex because of financial reasons, as opposed to a four-year school. Do you know how many of these Middlesex students would have gone to a four-year college but didn't because of financial reasons?
We've never asked that in just, speaking with my counselors in our meetings and when we talk about it, but it is something that come this spring, if you want, we can track that.
Anybody from the public? Yes, Miss. Sure, of course.
Two, one, colleges are big business. The more kids they remediate,
The more money.
more money.
Right.
So it's not a true one-to-one
Yeah.
correlation. The kid who remediates not being able to. We found just in looking at the Accuplacer, their requirements are ridiculous at times. Either the timing on it or the ability on a technology device. Two, it's really a wise strategy in a town like Sayreville, a blue-collar community like this, where we talk to kids about a two-year college until they're ready to go to a four-year college, financially. Some of our kids just aren't mature enough yet. They're not focused, I like to say, yet. But it is a pretty good strategy, and I've talked to some kids who are struggling with that dollar amount and saying, hey, my goal is just to get them to a college. You know the kids that are going to get through school. You know the kids that aren't. Get to a two-year college, just get there, and then it's where you finish. That's been taken very to have in mind. So that's a tough one to, again, say in a one-on-one correlation. We're not doing it here. Kids are getting that counseling to support, do these things. And I've had this conversation with them when we struggled with the 120 as the 130. You know, people thought it was okay with the 120, and we knew there was a direct negative impact on our kids. So we raised it to 130. And we know that the more they take academically, they will do better. But we don't have a lot of parents like Mr. Esposito who are pushing their kids. I can remember when John Overy, kids were here, John, and it was very direct and behind them. We're able to have that kind of support all the time.
Thank you, Mr. Brown. Anybody else from the public have any comment? Yes, ma'am. Yeah. You come up to the microphone, yes, just ask the question, because you're on a public meeting, sure.
Sure. 48
Sure.
Street. I have a question. I have a child who's a sophomore this year, and I've had 3 children go through this school already. From a parent's perspective, blue collar, everybody works during the daytime. Is there any way, or do you do it already, or is there any way that you can set up meetings, just like this? I'm here, but there's a lot of people who can't access the guidance department during the daytime because they're working. Speaking to the kids gets it through to the kids. But just like Mr. Esposito, he and the guidance office were on the same page with it. If it's brought together where the guidance can educate the parents as to what is necessary for their kids to be successful in college, is that some type of a possibility?
We certainly could.
Like having them down in the auditorium, parents and children together, so that they know what this is all about? Because it's that whole communication thing, and I think the parents are being left out a little bit. Yeah?
Yeah, that's a good suggestion, kind of like we do the AP nights and those types of things to educate people.
I have another night.
Yes, Ms. Packer, last one.
Is there anyone in the guidance office that is knowledgeable that could help parents with the financial aid process? Because I think maybe there are parents out there that can get money and their students can go to a 4-year school as opposed to a second year, but the whole financial process is probably very cumbersome and difficult for a lot of parents to figure out how to get money for their students.
Well, we used to have the financial aid workshop here, and we would pay the person to come in and run it. And a few years ago, the public library offered it, and they paid for it. So we promote it. And over the last 2 years, they've had so many people attend that they've had to do 2 and 3 financial aid sections at the library. They have it there, we promote it here. My staff all know how to fill out the FAFSA, whether some are young enough that they've done it themselves. My children are not old enough that I knew how to do it. Thankfully, Mr. Gentile had a daughter a few years ago that went to college, and he said, how do I fill out this FAFSA? So for 4 years, I did Mr. Gentile's FAFSA for his daughter. From there, once I did it once, I mean, I don't know if any of you have filled out a FAFSA. Literally, it's name, address. I mean, it is follow the bouncing ball. It's fairly self-explanatory. I had no issue with it. I've had probably over the last 5 years, 20 or more parents bring me their tax returns, and I've done it with them. I do it for them, with them, side by side.
All right, now, do those 20 parents make the initiative to come in, or do you have something that, do you offer that service up to parents if they need help?
It's only, people will call me and say, I'm having trouble with it, and I'll say, bring your stuff in. Not many people really want to sit next to me with their tax returns. You know what I mean? That's their private business, so, it's typically someone who, there's maybe a language barrier, or just it's their first child going to college that just needs some help.
So you're saying there are financial aid workshops that are held at the library, is what you're saying?
I'm sorry?
You said there are financial aid workshops that are done at the library.
Right in our public library, correct. And we support them. We do the Bomber Blast. It's on my website. We hand out flyers to the kids in the English classes. They're packed over there.
Anybody else from the public have any comments? Seeing none, Ms. Sokoler, I think of all the time I've been here, this is probably the most relevant presentation, that what we should be talking about. So I appreciate your time, and when you came down to the meeting to talk to us.
No problem.
Okay, anybody have any questions about the last set of minutes?
Just,
from last
Mr. Mayor,
meeting?
just a
Yes.
closing thought to follow up on
Sure.
what you said. You know, there are two other Vision 2030 committees. I encourage you to start having these discussions if you're not, because this presentation came out of what Mr. Esposito, Mr. McEnone, and I started talking with Goal 4. And if you ask any of the three of us, we have no idea where we're going. We don't know what the answer's going to be or what we're going to find out, but we're on a journey, and hopefully by June, all this information will come together and take us in a direction. But if you haven't started meeting, I encourage you to start meeting and having discussions on the other two goals.
Okay. Anybody have any deletions, additions to the last set of minutes that were posted? If not, accept the motion to accept and file the minutes.
So moved.
Second the motion.
Okay, can you do a roll call vote on the minutes, please?
Mr. Balco?
Yes.
Mrs. Batco?
Yes.
Mr. Bashada?
Yes.
Mrs. Bloom?
Yes.
Mr. Syak?
Yes.
Mrs. DePinto?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
I'm going to abstain on the August 23rd minutes.
And Mr. McEnroe?
Yes. Dr. Labby, unfortunately, Ms. Sokoler has utilized much of your time. So, if you, no, that was fine.
We'll send you flowers in the morning, it's okay.
By the way, no offense taken by the comment about that would be the best presentation you've ever heard.
Whatever.
9 million of them a year. Terrible, too.
That's the only one I've actually listened to, I'm sorry.
It certainly doesn't. Before I actually begin the superintendent's report, I do want to give another shout out to the administrators that took the time to be here this evening. I can't thank you guys enough, not only for being here, Don, a wonderful presentation, but I must say, this is my third year in Sayreville, third time experiencing the first day of school, and I must say, it couldn't have gone smoother than it did today, and it's all because of you and the amazing faculty members and support staff members in your buildings and in your departments. So thank you all. Please give them a big hand for a great day. Outside of the normal busing issues, and Rosie is here from the Transportation Department. I thought I saw Rosie. But outside of the normal transportation issues that you have at the beginning of the school year and some scheduling issues that you normally have at the beginning of the school year, everything went tremendously well. Dr. Shediak and I had a chance to go to the middle school, went incredibly smooth this morning. The high school was like they've been here all year. SAMSO, once again, did an amazing job, and I heard the same about Truman, Arleth, Wilson, and of course Eisenhower. So again, kudos to our administrative team, kudos to our faculty members and our support staff members for kicking off the school year in grand Sayreville fashion. Thank you guys very much. Okay, if I can direct your attention now to the superintendent's report, beginning with Vision 2030, Finance and Infrastructure. We'll start out with number 6. You can find it on page 2. There's a donation of 42 Chromebooks to the Arleth Elementary School by their PTO.
Wow.
Number 7, which you can find on page 2, we are asking you to approve the Apex Learning Digital Curriculum Solutions. We've been using Apex Learning now for 4 years, incredibly well. Mr. Gillespie, and I think Mr. Howard, or Mr. Pasta, do a tremendous job with that program. You can find that on page 2. Number 8, approval, we are receiving 4 students from South Amboy Board of Education or South Amboy School District. They'll be attending high school, so we're asking you to approve their tuition contracts with us. You can find that also on page 2. Number 9, we also have a private parent sending their child to the Arleth kindergarten, so we're asking you to approve that contract as well, and that can be found on page 2 also. Moving along, number 11, we're asking you to approve some amended salary grant offsets through our No Child Left Behind application. This is a normal amendment that we ask you to approve. We do have to have their salaries approved if they're going to be a part of that grant. Numbers 12 through 23, and we do have an addendum today. There is a finance addendum. So numbers 12 through 23 on the regular agenda, as well as 29 through 35 on the addendum. We have several building permits. Some of which are in accordance with our facility usage fee schedule. For you to approve, you can find that on pages 3 through 5, and of course the addendum.
Number 25, we have a student trip with transportation costs. Page 5. Number 26, on those same students from South Amboy, we are actually busing them for revenue. So that contract is there for you to see. Again, it's number 26. And then finally, number 28, we are asking to approve out-of-district tuition contracts for 3 students with disabilities. You can find that on page 6. Any questions at all on finance and infrastructure?
I have a question.
Mrs. Beck.
It's on the transfer report. Normally, we don't get a transfer report on the first meeting, but this was quite extensive. Can you explain what you were doing here, setting up these accounts?
For the summer enrichment in the cafeteria?
Well, yes, is that going to be a new process of how we do things, or?
Yeah, I'm attempting to set up a preliminary budget so we can estimate what the costs are going to be throughout the year, so we can monitor it, instead of it just being in the negative all year.
Okay, so this is the new way you're going to handle those particular accounts?
Right, which they were actually, this was all supposed to be on the August 23rd meeting, but because of me coming in on August 8th, I didn't have enough time to get it for that, so it got moved to this meeting.
Okay, and and then when you get to the regular fund accounts, why are we now this is all for this current year, correct, now?
Yes.
So we are done with last year?
Yes.
So why are we making so many transfers so soon? Like,
Well, these all happened in July, so this was to accommodate for purchases that happened in July that needed additional funding.
okay, so when you're, since you weren't here, we had a pretty rough budget year with these. Can you supply, normally since we do this the third week, we normally have a finance meeting before we do these transfer reports, so it makes it a little easier to understand. So is there anything specific on here, like why, like say, like some of these numbers, we would be changing the supply accounts so soon? So are those accounts all done now, do you feel? Is that why you're putting money in them?
A lot
Like,
of them I
why are
wasn't
you transferring
here
money
for.
into certain accounts so soon? Like, we already are over budget on certain accounts?
It's hard to talk about every week unless I know specific account we're talking about. I mean, I do know that in this particular case, and in some cases, monies are encumbered. And once those monies are encumbered, if there are any more expenses, then even though we haven't fully spent those funds because they've been encumbered, we can't go ahead and allocate.
Okay, so, all right, let me, so we have like, if you look on the last page, a tuition to a private school, and we're taking out $165,000. So my question is, we know that private school, we're not going to need that $165,000, we know that now?
Yeah, well, the fact that our private out-of-district line, again, we talked about this at our last meeting, we budgeted for something around 84 students, and we're right now holding strong at about 63.
Okay, so would that be an indication that our private school numbers will be down, or is this just something, is it going to go up and down, this type of thing?
You normally get a little bit of fluctuation with your private out-of-district schools, only because you have kids move into the district that need a private out-of-district school, and that's pretty much what we face during the course of the year. But those numbers pretty much, they may go up and they may go down, but they still stay around the same. You remember last year, we went up and down from 84, but we ended up with 84. So through the course of the year, we'll go up to 65, 66, and then come back down to 63. But that's in general where we're going to be.
Okay, because I see like the numbers went to like, say, contract regular homeschool. That's where a lot of it went. I guess what I'm trying to see, like, even if you look at the last line, you move dollars between general supplies, books into supplies and materials. I guess my question is this process, are you looking at, do you categorize things differently than the way we did the budget? I guess that's what I'm looking at. Is this something that's going to continue? Do you do things differently that you're making such changes between, say, a general supply account versus a supply and material account?
Well, the
per se?
supplies and material, that's for special services, whereas the account that it was transferred from was a different special services line, so it's being appropriated to the correct account. So
Okay.
it's being taken from within the same budget, because if you look at the location code, it's still in the special services department, so it's not taking away from anywhere else.
Okay.
It's still within the grand total of the special services.
I guess I'm just looking, are you looking at the budget differently than maybe necessarily the way we prepared it?
Which is okay.
I mean, yeah, I'm not saying it's wrong, I'm just saying, is that, like, because I've never seen so many transfers so soon, that's all.
When I do know in a couple of lines, for instance, transportation, we were underfunded, particularly in the area of contracted services for general education students. So that is something that she had to tackle immediately.
Okay.
And that's where she went ahead, and I believe transferred funds from that private out-of-district line to them.
Very good.
And with regards to one of those supply accounts, I know that we did have one of our special services supply accounts that the vendor led our people to believe that there was going to be a certain discount on those supplies. And there was confusion with regard to that, and there was in fact not a discount. So they did go over the amount that was budgeted for in their line. So we had to go ahead and transfer funds, a small amount of funds, but funds to go ahead and support that line.
Yeah. I guess my concern is, since we're doing this so soon, is some people who didn't use their, since the supply money is so tight, I don't want to see that some people don't get their supply money, that's all.
Yeah, I don't think that's the case, but I do think this is a good discussion to have during our next finance committee meeting in terms of, I know that our first one we talked about Erin and her vision of operation. I think this lends to that because she does have a different perspective to the way in which she's going to manage our finances.
I didn't
and I don't
take
have a
any,
problem
like,
with that.
there's a transfer for Arliff, but all of the money stayed within Arliff. It's just that wherever the purchase.
You're just categorizing things
Exactly.
And thank God, by the way.
So it's more
because my wife
descriptive.
doesn't even allow me to manage my own finances.
Okay,
Thank God we have her.
carry on. Okay, continue.
Any other questions or comments on Vision 2030 finance and infrastructure?
Number 5, I will abstain on.
Anything else? Seeing none. Vision 20, I direct your attention now to Vision 2030 student achievement. Beginning on page 7, number 1, we do have several curriculum guides for you to approve. And I believe, Dr. Shediak, most of these are just revisions.
Yes.
Number 2, which can also be found on page 7, we're asking to approve a course title change from Math 8301 to Math 8302 and Math 8302 to Algebra 1. You can find that on page 7. Once again, we're now referring to those two courses as Algebra 1. Items number 3 and 4 that can be found on page 7, we have 2 co-curricular activities for you to approve. Any questions on Vision 2030 student achievement?
Yes, once again, you know where I'm going with this. School has started and we're approving new curriculum. Can we set a different timeline, Marilyn, so that there's more time for teachers to see this? I know you keep telling me that they're involved, but I think rolling something out on the first day of school, it doesn't feel right.
These courses were started in June of 2015, and it took that long to get them back from the teachers and to approve them. The teachers, every teacher has seen a copy of this. They've seen drafts of it, anyone who's teaching these
But I'm
subjects.
wondering if we said, instead of like in June, giving them the charge to have it ready for the next, like May, was it May that you tell them to
Yes.
have it in by? Maybe if we said in January, have it for, like give them like an extra 6 months, and then it would come maybe in March, and then we would have it.
We have tried that. We have tried every which way we can. We truly have. I mean, and we can't extend it too much longer because by the time they're done revising it, it's outdated. I mean, honestly, because we do have a curriculum writing cycle. So it's a catch-22. We do our best. We try to stay on top of it. We give them deadlines,
And I
benchmarks
understand
along
you
the
have
way.
to go through all of these and approve them, so it takes your time as well.
Right,
But it just,
But every teacher has seen these, it's a matter of like the media arts technology, all the teachers who wrote that are all the teachers who are teaching it.
Right.
And they have all been involved in writing it. We had to return it to them. when we got it in July, and because we wanted them to add a couple things, make a few minor changes, but, told them basically, it's fine the way it is, but, we just need you to do these
Maybe if we gave
little...
them a little less time, and then it would give you more time to
We have
review it
tried
and
that.
To get it back.
We
Not
have-
working, huh?
No,
Okay. Well, maybe if we, well, never mind, I'm not going there.
I have a feeling if it wasn't for deadlines, nothing would get done. This kind of applies to this,
Right.
this situation.
And we're just about ready to embark on another major curriculum overhaul. The Department of Education is going to be releasing their state student learning standards. And we're going to have to modify all of our curriculum to be in compliance with the student learning standards. That's coming down the pike.
they're out, so, and the changes are minor, and those are things that we're hoping to be able to just kind of do without a whole revision.
Any more questions on student achievement? No? Okay, I bring attention now to student governance. Number one, they're asking you to approve some minor alterations to our school hours, mostly the dismissal at the high school, the dismissal at the middle school, and arrival and dismissal for Project Before preschool programs at the Samsel Upper Elementary School. Number two, we're asking you to approve grade level configuration changes for our behavioral disability program at the Wilson School, as well as the Samsel Upper Elementary School. You can find that on page 8. The major discrepancies that led to us to make this grade level configuration change is according to New Jersey Administrative Code, we have a certain age requirements to maintain within those programs. And we do have, with some of those third graders, we would have had an age discrepancy. We would have kids over the required number of years in terms of age span at that program. So that is why we went ahead and moved the third grade program over to SAMSO. Number three, we're asking you to approve the adult school facilitator job description. You might remember this job description. We brought this to your attention several meetings ago. We had some discussion about it. It was tabled. We went back to our personnel committee. We revised that job description, including the title, and we're now asking you to approve that. That's on pages 9 and 10. Number four, we're asking you to approve several Board of Education policies. And when I mean several, I mean close to a dozen policies and regulations. We're asking you to approve those for a first reading. You can find that on pages 10 and 11. And we do have attachments up there. So all the policies are up there that we're asking you to approve for a first reading. Board of Education members, I know you have them. Members of the public, if you need them, they're up there as well. Any questions on Vision 2030 governance?
Dr. Labby, I recall that we tabled the adult school facilitator. If the motion to table was in place, why is it back on the agenda? Don't we have to rescind the tabling?
The idea of tabling it was so we could go back and revise it. You tabled it so you did not have to vote on it at that time for the purpose of going back and revising it, and that's what we did.
But do we not have to take a vote to put it back out there?
No, it's on the agenda. You just vote on it.
I mean, from a strict Robert's Rules of Order perspective, probably yes.
But we agreed when we made the original vote that we would put it back on the agenda the next meeting, making the corrections that
I
people had
don't recall
accepted.
that.
Well, the one thing on the primary function, do you have it in front of you, Dr. Labby? The job description, there's just one sentence I want deleted on the primary function I think we overlooked when we made the other correction. When I reviewed it today, I overlooked it. Just the, if you look on the section 2,
Okay.
primary function, put a period after grants and delete the rest.
Put a period after grants and
Delete the rest.
Okay.
If you recall about this job description, we had the conversation that wound up tabling it. There was a couple of items that some of you took exception to that we deleted. And then the biggest exception from many of you were the fact that we didn't want to put this on the table when we were still negotiating with SCA, and you wanted to wait until the SCA contract was settled. The SCA negotiation committee worked very hard, and I'd say probably about 12 hours worth of negotiations to settle that. So all the issues that were brought up to table it have been resolved. Also, if you recall, during Dr. Labby's evaluation, some of us were concerned that he was doing too many things. Sending out emails 4:30 in the morning and so on and so forth. And we wanted him to delegate, I think was the word that we used, Dr. Labby, if I'm not mistaken. It was a delegate.
Correct.
This position takes all of those ancillary things, that he was working on, and some other things that we put in there to get these things taken care of and to assist the superintendent, who deleted, was it 2 or 3 administrative positions this school year. So that was the intention of it. It's also, since it's an adult school, we all know that this position will pay for itself. And I think, especially with the, now what's the status of our advertising?
We had no responses.
Had no responses, okay? That, to me, is a lot of potential to get revenue from advertising. And sometimes this board, we act like ineffective debating society. We talk about things, and we've been talking about advertising for the last 6, 7 years. And now we have an opportunity to take a position and say, you're going to be responsible for advertising. And that in itself will more than doubly pay for what the cost of this job is going to be. So since this is a position, I say, put it out there. If it doesn't work, the board has a discretion to eliminate that position. That's my take.
Mike, if you're eliminating that last sentence in the primary function, then you're
Sure.
going to have to take out number 5 as well.
Number 5, what?
Under essential knowledge required.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
The numerical.
You're right.
Not the.
Yeah, number 5 on the 5,
But my question.
which is related to it.
Okay, my
And that's agreed upon. Those are things.
follow-up
yeah.
questions here are, right now, number 1, who's taking care of SAT and ACT student assessment? Who's doing that job right now?
Dr. Labby?
Currently, we are using 2 patrons. There are 2 patrons that provide SAT.
Well, who's taking care of that number 1 item right now? Well, I mean, we have some.
Outside of the SAT courses that our children take in school, there are 2 patrons.
Okay, companies that
Correct.
provide.
Two patrons.
They use our facilities and are paid by
Okay.
the students to take the course.
Who is maintaining the use of facilities? I know it used to be one of the secretaries.
Karen Morris fills
Okay.
out the permits, but I'm the one that deals with the people when it comes to negotiating facility use agreements.
Okay.
But I think the issue is not only doing that, but to go out there and soliciting and getting people to rent our facilities. That was the thinking there, if I'm not mistaken.
And who is applying for grants at this point? Who does that?
Could be any one of our administrators.
Okay, but someone is,
Right now,
someone is,
Well, we never had a centralized grant writer, and I think there's a lot of money out there that we had, especially since Ms. Esposito and I and you, Ms. Bloom, were working the School Safety and Security Committee. There's a lot of grants out there, especially in this time from the workshop we went to about school security. Monies that we can get to enhance security in different aspects of our building. And that, to me, there's a lot of money out there, but the problem is, nobody writes grants. It's time-consuming, it's detailed, but, I think it needs to be done. It's free money.
and the last one, the residency, we don't have anybody taking care of that right now, do we?
And if you get 2 residency checks that are not supposed to be here, that job pays for itself, so.
I'm just going to be very honest and blunt. I have an issue with this job description, the way it's written. I think it's exceptionally convoluted. I mean, it's an adult school facilitator that works with the director of guidance to coordinate post-secondary education presentations for students and parents. It's an adult school facilitator that checks residency. It's an adult school facilitator that pursues grants. The job description just doesn't work for me. And what also doesn't work for me is this job description is not known in the district as the adult school facilitator job description. It's known in the district by the name of the person who's going to have the job. And it doesn't work for me. I want to get Dr. Labby some help. I do think he needs some help, but this structure isn't working for me. I see it being fashioned around a particular talent as opposed to being prioritized around the immediate needs of the district and the requirements needed to satisfy those needs. And that's just my opinion, but it's just not working for me.
You agree that those are things that need to be done in the district?
Yeah, just not together under one person.
But Kevin,
They
I
just,
agree and
to me,
disagree
they
a
don't
point.
go together.
But none of these individually are full-time jobs. That's the way I'm looking at it.
Need to be.
I mean, you could probably check residency in 5 minutes. You throw something in Excel, do a comparative analysis, and in 5 minutes you got it. I mean, it just spews out addresses. If they don't match or they match, they're gone. I mean, I just think that, as I read it, this is probably, little part-time jobs for one person to coordinate all of them.
So you're looking this as a residency 5-minute check?
If you look at our system,
Is
if it
that what
takes you
this
more than
job
5 minutes,
description is
you don't
for?
know Excel.
No, he's just using that as an example, what a residency check is.
That part is easy. That
I
part's
remember
nothing.
we hired a residency check company and produced nothing. So,
That's good.
yeah, that's good. Right,
great.
but if it's a 5-minute job, why did we pay an outside company to do it?
I don't know.
Yeah, I didn't think that, I thought this meant to verify people that really didn't live here.
Yeah, that's what a
So
residency
how is
check
that-
is.
Well, you have addresses in our system, right? In our Genesis system. We use Genesis, is that what we use here? I don't even know what we use.
Power School.
Power School? I
Similar.
mean, you could just check it out in Power School. I mean, it's really simple to look at, to see if the person lives in town or doesn't live in town, or if there's 5 people in the same address, you can check things out. But my point, the other thing, I just don't think all of these are full-time, any of these are a full-time job. I mean, just my opinion. We need all of them done, that's for sure.
But they also didn't rise to the level of need in the budget process either, which,
So if this job generated $200,000 in revenue, what would you think?
what I would think it would need to be, look, if it's going to generate revenue, then it shouldn't be focused on an adult school facilitator. It should be focused on grant and revenue generation, and the salary and compensation structure should be commensurate with that type of position. And we should look for somebody that has a background in grants and business development and revenue generation.
Well, when we tabled this last, it was supposed to go back to the policy committee to be looked at. It didn't?
I thought it
It
went
went
to
back
the
to personnel.
personnel committee.
But that's not what we said at the meeting. It was supposed to go back to the policy committee.
We didn't have an opportunity to discuss the policy because we had to go through about a dozen policies.
But it went back to the personnel committee. Aren't you on the personnel
I don't
committee?
think it was policy. I would have followed
Yes,
policy.
She is.
but it was supposed to go to the policy committee first.
It was also, but again,
But it
we
didn't.
had one policy.
Yeah, I mean, if you want governance to look at it, we will. I mean, but governance has never reviewed job descriptions. It's always done under personnel.
That's right.
And the finance committee already said they didn't want to create a new job, so there's no value to send it back to the finance committee.
Well, it's not a budget constraint.
It is a
item.
budget item. Any new job is a budget constraint. It's, anything that's a paid salary is a budget constraint.
Any other discussion?
Okay, bring your attention to Vision 2030 personnel. I will make one mention. If you look at the addendum, there are some personnel motions on the addendum. There happen to be number 27s. I apologize for the numerical error. So obviously, the second, number 27, is actually 28, then followed by 29 and 30. But bringing your attention back to item number 1 and 2, as well as item number 26, we do have some resignations that we're asking you to approve. Numbers 6 and 23, which can be found on pages 11 and 12 in the addendum, we have 3 leave absences. Number 8, that can be found on page 12, we are going to ask you to approve the amendment of some salaries for some certificate staff members to achieve longevity. Number 10, which can be found on page 13, we're asking you to approve the transfer of one of our ASI teachers. Number 12, which can be found on pages 13 and 14, we're asking you to hire or rehire 6 certificated tenure track staff members or replacement staff members for the 2016-17 school year. Number 13 and number 27, we're asking you to approve to hire 2 custodians and 4 part-time paraprofessionals. You can find 3 of those paraprofessionals on the addendum. Numbers 14 through 17, we're asking you to approve 2 extracurricular advisor assignments, 1 volunteer fall coaching assignment, 1 paid spring coaching assignment, and a staff member to videotape football scrimmages, regular season games, and so forth. You can find that on pages 14 through 15. Number 18, we're asking you to approve several teachers and 2 administrators to serve as achievement coaches. You can find that on page 15. Number 19, we have several teachers we're asking you to approve as Saturday detention supervisors from the high school. You can find that on page 15. Numbers 20 through 21 on page 16, we're asking you to approve certified and non-certified substitutes.
Number 22, we're asking to approve some professional days. Numbers 28 through 29, we're asking to appoint district-wide webmaster, digital media coordinator, and web assistance technology facilitators. You can find that in the addendum. Those two job descriptions, you approved revisions to during our last Board of Education meeting. Any questions on Vision 2030 personnel?
Dr. Labby?
Yes.
On page 14, the bottom one, the strength and conditioning coach.
Yes.
I believe 3 or 4 meetings ago that it wasn't approved, and I believe I asked that it be posted. Was that job ever posted for anybody else?
The job was not posted, but we did not, we never received any staff member that stated they were interested in having that position.
Yeah, but if you don't post it, how do you know who's going to want it, though?
That position, we are recommending that particular person for.
Thank you.
Just for the board's information, on the policies that you received, I don't know why on the printed copies none of the edited changes came out. I don't know if it's because I'm using a new computer or if because when Maureen printed them, she accepted all changes. But I will email all of you a copy of these policies with the edits so that you all have them, and
The
then...
ones with the edit are on the portal.
Okay,
This was the fresh copy for the public.
gotcha. Okay.
Could you email it anyway?
I can
Thank
email
you.
it anyway.
Use the portal.
I think there was only one in here that actually had the blue.
Yeah, and I think that was a web address. That wasn't even an edit.
No, I think the one,
Okay.
I saw a big blue
Okay.
section. and
But I'll get them to the board so you
Any
have
other
the,
board
the
discussion on
edits.
agenda items before I open it up for the public? Seeing none, at this time, open the public for anything on the agenda. I will open up for the public for any business that may come before the board. Anybody have any questions, comments on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll close the public portion, entertain a motion to file and accept the superintendent's report.
So moved.
I need a second.
Second it.
I need a roll call vote to accept and
It's
approve the
the one on the
superintendent's report.
Mr. Balca?
Okay, you have A, number 5, page 2, abstain, right?
Yes.
C, number 3, page 9, I'm going to vote no on. C, number 4, page 10, policy 511, 5111, and 5118, I'm going to vote no on. And D, number 15, page 14, I'm going to vote no on. And D, number 17, page 15, I'm going to vote no on also.
Which one was that then?
The last one?
Yeah.
Page
D,
17.
Richard told me.
the scrimmages. It's a higher rate than we pay all the other workers at games, so I figured it should be more in line with the
What
other.
page is it on?
Oh, the last page,
15.
16.
Number 17 on page 15.
Oh, I thought it was page 17.
You have that all? Or you need, okay.
Mrs. Batco?
I'm going to be voting no on page 8, number 3. And I'll be voting no on number 15, page 14.
Page 15, page 14, what's that? What- say that
Page
again?
14, number 15.
Okay.
So I got some confused.
Is that it? Okay. Mr. Bashada?
Page 8, I'll be voting no on the job description, adult school facilitator, excuse me. Page 10, policy number 5111, I'll be voting no on. Page 14, the strength and conditioning coach, I'll be voting no on. And that's number 15. And page 15, number 17, I'll be voting no on also.
Mrs. Bloom?
I will be voting no on governance, number 3 on page 8.
Mr. Syak?
Also no on governance, page 3, number 8, and yes on everything else.
Mrs. DePinto?
Yes.
Mr. Esposito?
Yes.
Mr. Walsh?
Yes, and may I add a resounding yes on our strength and conditioning coach, who's done a fabulous job keeping our athletes safe. Don't mistake what a violent game, how tough sports, how fast they've become, and how important strength training is to the safety of those players.
And Mr. McEnroe?
I will be voting yes with no exceptions. Finance and infrastructure, you had a meeting since last board meeting?
No.
Okay, student achievement, have we had a meeting?
Nope.
Okay. Policy?
Yes, we met. You've got 14 pages of 14 policies of output from that meeting.
Can't wait to read them.
Enjoy.
Personnel.
We had a brief meeting earlier today, talked about some of our last second vacancies, and we're almost home. We're at a good spot.
Any other blue ribbon committee? Where do we?
We did cancel the meeting because we had no new information.
Right.
I have since spoken to Father Stanley, who informed me that the building has been leased, and as a result of that, he would not be able to
Which
allow
one is
the
that?
committee. Sacred Heart, I'm sorry.
What was the other building we were looking at?
Dr. Labby was trying to reach out to the diocese. I don't know if they got back to him.
Not yet.
No, nobody got back to him yet.
Okay.
So,
Keep us posted.
since the building is leased, we can't go in. That was
gotcha.
my question. So,
Gotcha.
right now, we have nothing new.
Okay.
Mr. McEnroe, on a related note as it pertains to Blue Ribbon, Dr. Labby, you sent the enrollment statistics for us. As I read that, we're about 50 down right now in our elementary
Correct.
schools.
Correct.
I'm assuming we have no idea if that's a trend or just a one-year anomaly. I'm guessing it's probably a one-year anomaly. Although this is, I think, this is the second year in 3 years that we've had a one-year anomaly.
I would say I would give you a word of caution. Based upon the number of people that are enrolling late into the district. I know those numbers too. I saw those numbers, and first thing I thought was that was very interesting too. I will also note the number of people not present. There's a high number of students not present, but I would offer a word of caution right now for the enrollment statistics, because I think they're going to climb as we progress into the next week or two, due to the number of people that, for one reason or another, decided to enroll into our district at the last minute.
Could we monitor how many students we get from over there by Club Benet when that's
We are,
up and
and right now
enrolled?
we have one.
Okay, so just
But the
let
place
me
is
know
vacant.
when we hit 12.
Huh? Oh, there's still, I don't know how many people.
So we had
are living-
173 absences district-wide today, first day of school.
Correct.
When you talk about a late enrollments, is that let me try that again. Is that specifically kindergarten focused, or is that basically
No,
K-12?
across the board.
Really?
Across the board.
Okay. More than usual, or are we just typically?
Well, I mean, compared to last year, I mean, yeah, we've had a high influx. I mean, you normally get a large group of people that for one reason or another decide to enroll their child late into a school district once they move in. But I would say this year, it's been much higher than the past 2 years that I've been here.
Okay, on the discussion, Mr. Esposito, why don't you give us a short update on Sayreville Day?
Sayreville Day, okay. Well, I found out some information that I did not know. I guess, I thought we had some sort of budget that we could give some giveaways out to the kids and stuff like that. And
That's the who, you want us to go to jail?
Not good, yeah, right. I found that out too.
You bring a bag of candy.
So we're all going to contribute some candy or some novelty item that we can give away. And I'm going to send out a sheet, and there's only 6 hours, and there's 9 of us, so.
Dare I ask this, Dr. Shadid, why do we go there? Now that we have no school booklets to hand out, because everything's electronic, we can't hand out any pencils or anything like that, so we sit there and give them candy when we're telling Miss Jenkins that she's got to feed them healthy? So what's our
We want to be the good
function there?
guys.
New Jersey Dental
To be
Association.
a public face, to greet
public-
people, to
yes.
answer questions, to, for people who can't get out to the board meetings, perhaps.
So what are we going to have on the table? Do we need a table?
I'm not sure.
Refresh me on the accountability regs, because I know that's what governs this. We can't hand out anything.
We can't purchase anything to hand out. If you want to buy something, I buy something, yeah, we can hand it out. You just can't have this, you can't use.
So, Erin, we couldn't hand out pencils with our name on them. That's a violation of the accountability. I mean, I'm not looking to give away a Porsche.
You want to give school
I
children
can
pencils?
check the accountability regs. It's not something districts typically do, so, but I will double check for you.
Mr. Esposito, if you can find out what would cost to buy a gross of pencils and have Sayreville written on there, and we'll chip in and pay.
I did. It's for 24 pencils,
That's not a
to have our
gross.
name on it.
24 pencils?
Well, no, they sell in 24 packs.
Okay.
So I don't know how you'd want to buy 500 pencils. It's $5 for 24 pencils, and you could put some inscription on it. Sayreville Board of Education.
OrientalTradingCompany.com.
Could do that also. But that's what it
So
costs,
for
$5
$50,
to
we
import.
get 240 pencils.
That's correct, which we'd probably need 500, I guess. So, I
I'm going to
mean,
put you in touch with Marlene right there. Marlene, raise your hand. Marlene is our pride person. She takes care of all that for the association. Maybe she can point you in the right direction where you can get stuff cheaper.
Uh-oh, Marlene, you're on the spot.
Mr.
Just a
Magno,
thought.
I would certainly be willing to kick in.
so we're going to take a
$10,
donation amongst the board?
$20 a piece.
$10 each,
Yeah.
$20 each?
Yeah.
Is that what we're
Yes,
gonna do?
and let's get something that dignified
$20
to
each?
hand out.
Give me something to work with?
And no candy. It's
No
celery
candy.
or
Okay.
something.
No candy?
No, celery or something.
I know we shouldn't bring candy,
Mm-hmm.
but I do think candy is what brings the
Brings the
people to
kids
the
to the
table.
table,
It's
absolutely.
unfortunate.
So bring the candy and we'll hand them
little
out.
candy.
But that's
Bring the
how,
candy.
that's really what, you always see people.
Ms. Desmond,
like,
you
wanna
"Oh,
lure them in with the
candy."
If you guys figure out you want to do, send an email out, we'll take care
So
of it.
Mrs. Bacco is advising that the Board of Education lure kids with candy. This is good.
That's why I thought that, I remember we didn't, and then I thought that's why we switched to the
Yeah,
candy, if
last
I
year we
recall.
brought candy.
That's what I thought why
All
we
right.
did.
Candy and pencils.
Candy and
At
pencils.
this time, I'd like to
Mr.
open-
McEnone, I have an issue with,
You have an issue, Mr. Bashad?
Yes.
No kidding, what's up?
I had the misfortune this afternoon to be in front of the high school at 2:12, and the students are already coming out at 2:12, crossing into Kennedy Park, and they're clueless. I'll tell you the truth, we need a security guard or somebody out there. There's no crosswalks, they just walk out. They're going to get hit, somebody's going to get hit. They don't look, they just walk out, and believe me, it's an accident going to happen. We need either somebody from the school out there holding him back or with a stop sign.
This is from the school driveway to the
Right
Kennedy
over
Park.
here at the entrance to the high school.
Going over to Kennedy
They're
Park.
not crossing at the
to
light,
Kennedy
they're going
Park.
directly across.
They walk directly across the street.
Didn't we have a crossing guard there?
He's there in the morning.
They have
At
two
the
crossing
corner,
guards
not
at
by the
Ernston Road.
No, we have one at Pizza.
There was one at the
Yeah, I don't
park.
think we ever.
Mr. Brown, what was that? The issue of the high school students at school dismissal crossing where the driveway is over to,
County Road, Mr. McEnroe, I think you'd be hard pressed to have a,
well, I agree, but a question I have, was there ever a crossing guard at that location?
never in the
Never.
afternoon,
In the morning, I say.
In the morning there is?
Yes.
The afternoon, I'll tell you the truth, when they come barrel out of that, there could be a dozen or 2 dozen, and then they break and the cars, somebody's going to get anxious, and they're going to come across.
No doubt,
You know, and there's,
I think upon the borough to.
I agree. Dr. Labby?
and also, there's no crosswalk there. If you'll look, there's no lines. And that's the first sign for the driver is going to say, hey, they crossed out of a crosswalk. You know, so I'm not responsible after I ran that student over. You know?
Well, the question is, if we're
I'm
allowing...
just saying, you know, you want to get technical.
Listen, if we're allowing students to park in Kennedy Park, that come to high school, they're allowed to park in Kennedy Park, the town lets them do that. So then there's a responsibility on the town to make sure that that crossing is safe.
safe.
I know they have, so could we approach Dr. Labby, the BA of the town, and if they have one there in the morning, why don't they have one there in the afternoon, is the question I would have.
Do they have one there in the morning?
Yeah, Mr. Brown said they do.
They do,
Yes.
okay.
So obviously, there's a
Yeah.
hazard there, why would it be any less hazardous in the
Doesn't
afternoon?
make sense.
Yeah, exactly. So we can answer that, Mr. Bashad, and we
Thank
can
you.
get that pretty quickly. And I'll give the mayor a call.
Mr.
See-
McEnroe,
Yes.
before you open to public, since we approved this evening the Sayreville Lions Pancake Breakfast, they do 2 a year. My husband has asked me to be his voice tonight. He's the new president of the Lions.
Yes, he mentioned something to me at the Saturday.
To inform the public that all of the profits raised through the pancake breakfast help fund our local projects. They donate annually over $2,000 to scholarships and awards to Sayreville High School seniors. They provide free eye exams and glasses to any needy Sayreville School District child, and they have donated $1,100 to the Nelson family that lost everything in the recent fire. So I'll mention it again when we're closer to the date of the pancake
Yes.
breakfast, but this is something that
And I think,
we really need to support.
I think we put that on bomber flyer, the
Right. Mhm.
blast
Okay.
it out, so.
They also sponsor a boy and girl for American Legion, Jersey Boys State as well.
Yeah, they do a lot
Right,
of good
that's
things.
all
Board does
part
as
of
well.
that
Yeah, we should all
scholarship
support
Yes.
donation.
Yeah.
Thank you. This time I go for the public, if any business may come before the board, anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Room is started, room is stopped, anything? Please come up, state your name and address for the record. Seeing none, I'll close the public portion and adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Mr. Brown?